generally speaking, by May, it is very hot, and I will not be wearing any kind of wool between at least May and September. Hello, knitting friends. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Kristen, and today we are talking about spring and summer knitting plans. So I will be sharing some patterns and some yarn. I'll also do a quick recap of how I did on my fall and winter knitting plans. And I will even be talking about a possible pattern design. So before we jump in today, I am wearing my Odyssey pullover because even though we are talking about spring, and if you are watching this, it is technically spring, we are still in the 40 degrees range today. We had some really warm weather a couple of weeks ago. It was 85 degrees one day. The next day it snowed. And we have just been going back and forth since then. So today is supposed to get into the 50s. We'll see. Yesterday and the day before barely got out of the 30s. So we are all over the place, and I still need a warm sweater layer. All right, so if you've been here a while, you'll know that I don't generally do a plan for every season. So I tend to do spring, kind of moving into summer, and then fall, moving into winter. So just for the speed at which I knit and the kind of weather we have, it's more practical for me to think in terms of either warm weather knits or cold weather knits. So today we're going to be talking about the warm weather knits and knitting plans. So these are all generally going to be projects with short sleeves, with no sleeves, using maybe a wool, cotton, linen blend, but leaning more toward the plant fibers. We're not talking about woolly layers here. We're definitely talking about stuff for when the weather gets warm. Now, spring here tends to be pretty short, as I said. We're still going back and forth between winter and spring right now, and generally speaking, by May, it is very hot, and I will not be wearing any kind of wool between at least May and September. So I do get a fair bit of use out of warm weather knits, although they are not my favorite thing to knit, to be honest. But I really found some cute stuff. So I'm going to be breaking this down into things I'm definitely, almost certainly going to at least cast on. Some maybe projects that would be nice to get to if I can, and then some sort of long shot projects that, you know, if I had all the time and money for yarn in the world, I would love to do, but they're probably not going to make it onto the needles. So if you watched my first video for 2026, you'll know I have a Make 12 this year. So that's really kind of separate from any specific fall, winter, or spring, summer knitting plans. So some of the things here are on my Make 12, but not all of them. They're just extras that, you know, even though I have a huge load of whips and no business casting on new projects, I'm going to do it anyway. So a quick recap of how I did on my fall/winter knitting plans. So I got 3 projects from my fall/winter knitting plans done, although 2 of them were already whips when I made those plans. But I did finish my Calm Down cardigan and my Yoon sweater, and I knit a Harris hood. Another set of projects are on the needles. I've at least started them. One of them is almost finished. So my reading cardigan, or reading cardigan, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, still on the needles. Really haven't made any progress with that. So that was another one that was already a whip. It's still a whip. The Ran vest is on the needles and is more than halfway done. The Gwynver pullover, or sweater, is on the needles, and I am about to finish the body. I've just got a few more rounds of ribbing, and then I just have one more sleeve. That should be done by the end of the month. Next week's video will be the podcast, so you'll be able to see how I did on that. The Winnie top, I cast that on. And I am hoping to, I've put it back on the needles recently, and I'm hoping to make some progress on it for the spring. That is a short sleeve top, but it is also 100% wool yarn that I'm using. So if I can buckle down, I might get a wear out of it. maybe 2 if I finish it up maybe in April. And then the other part of my fall winter knitting plans was a Christmas sweater, which I did start and I did finish the yoke on, and then was not going to have it finished for Christmas, so decided to put it away until next fall/winter. And then we have a few things and that is the Veer pullover and the jean cardigan, but both of those are on my Make 12 for this year. And then the Alpine Bloom hat and the Cider House socks, no. So I just finished a couple of things from those plans, but I did start a fair number and am continuing to work on them. As I said, hoping Gwynver was going to be done by the end of this month. Ran vest, probably not this month, but probably I want to say in April I have finished the back and started the left front. I don't know what's going on with that reading cardigan. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a lot of fabric. It is all over half fisherman's rib. It is knit in a heavier, not super heavy, but a heavier yarn. I think I'm using Wool Dreamers Moda, which is a DK worsted. It's supposed to be oversized. It's just a lot of project. And I maybe find it a little overwhelming. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's a quick recap of my fall winter plans and whether or not they succeeded. And now let's jump into spring. All right, so for spring, in addition to finishing up some whips, I have many. I have 3 projects that I definitely am going to at least cast on, and I either have or have ordered yarn for all of them. And 2 of them are in my Make 12 as well. So the first one is the Margo top. This is a pattern by Gregoria Fibers. I've seen so many lovely versions of this. As you can see, it is a sleeveless top with some texture and eyelets. So sort of an easy, relaxed fit for warmer weather. The recommended yarn for this is either Morning Salutation by Kremke Soul Wool, which is a Tencel cotton blend, or Woolly Wood by Novita, which is a Tencel merino blend, and both are a DK weight. So this one I think is a good candidate for a plant-based yarn, and I do have the yarn for it. So for this project, I will be using Dilly Dally. This is, there we go, a newer yarn from Knit Picks. So I believe they launched this yarn maybe last warm weather season. This color is called Shoal, and the light's not great today, but at least it's not raining, so you can get a nice idea of this color, which is just a beautiful deep teal. I think Shoal is the perfect name. So this is a Pima Cotton Bamboo Hemp. Pima Cotton is cotton, but it's going to give it a lot of structure. The bamboo is going to help it have a little bit more drape, and I don't know what the hemp's going to do. I guess we're going to find out. I have knit with hemp before, but a long time ago. So I've got the yarn for that one. Margo top is, so if you've been here and heard about my Make 12, every month I have picked a project I would like to cast on, but only if I finished a project the month before. Originally, my March project was the Haley sweater. However, I've shifted things around so that this is now the March project, and I would like to cast this on if I finish 2 sweaters, again, the Gwynver and my Cozy Cottage Cardi that only each have 1 sleeve left. So we'll see. I may go ahead and cast this on by the end of the month. So there are 400 of these Margo tops on Ravelry if you want to see how they've turned out, but they just look lovely, just like a comfortable, easy to throw on piece for warmer weather. So DK is about as heavy as I would get for warm weather, and probably, in July, this is not really going to fly, but hopefully in the early summer, late spring, this will be a good pick. So that is the first of my spring plans. Next, we have the Lavender tank top. This has been in my queue for years. And it is also a part of my Make 12, so this would be my April cast on if I keep up with that. This is a pattern by Along Avec Anna, and this is originally done in a 100% merino. I don't want to do it in a 100% merino or a 100% wool because there is such a short period of time in which I would wear a sleeveless wool top. However, I don't want to go 100% plant-based because just looking at the structure of the pattern, which has this chevron shape, I think it's not going to look as nice. It's not going to hold that shape as well if I just use like a cotton or a cotton linen. I do want some of that wool in there to give it some of the same fabric characteristics that we're seeing in this sample. Although I do think there are about 100 projects on Ravel, and I think some of them have used a totally plant-based yarn. But I just think I'm going to get something a little closer to the sample, the way it drapes and the way it fits, if I have something that has a bit of wool in it. So I was originally hoping to use a Sandusgarn Duo for this, which is a wool cotton blend. Unfortunately, I'm still working on a limited yarn budget. The cat needed $1,300 worth of vet work last month. So it's like every time we get a little bit ahead. Still working on a limited budget. So I have just ordered, but I don't have yet, to share a wool cotton blend from Hobby Hoby, however that's pronounced. It is their Happy Place yarn. So this is a little bit more reasonably priced than the Sandusgarn Duo, because while the price per ball is about the same, they have almost twice the yardage per ball. And Hobby has those extra discounts that they will give you if you order more than X number of balls of yarn. So that is what I have ordered. I don't have it yet. I will, of course, share it hopefully in the next podcast as an acquisition so you can see the colors I have picked. I haven't used that yarn before. I'm interested to see. I have worked with other of their yarns, but I haven't tried this one. And I'm interested to see how it works up. And again, that would probably be my April cast on for my Make 12 if I continue making progress on that. Hopefully I will have that yarn to share in the next podcast because I think I picked, hopefully, some nice colors. It's always hard to tell on the computer screen. So that is definite project number 2. And then definite project number 3 is the Penelope top by Sari Nordland. I've actually still not knit any Sari Nordland patterns, so I am interested to give them a try. Obviously, she's a very popular designer. This is a fingering weight sleeveless top designed to be worked in a plant fiber. So the yarn called for is Tinlina by Sandusgarn, which is a cotton, rayon, linen, flax blend. And that is a fingering weight. So it's nice, light, airy. You can, just looking at it, you can see it's knit at a relatively loose gauge. It has lace, this cute little tie. This is a summer knit. Again, Sandusgarn, not quite in my budget right now, but I do have yarn for this one. So the yarn I got for this is Lindy Chain. And this is in the colorway Clarity. So you can see it is a nice pale blue. And as the name kind of implies, this is a chainette yarn, I believe. So that is the structure of the yarn. I don't think I've used Lindy Chain before. I've obviously used many of Knit Picks yarn. So this is a linen Pima cotton blend. It is a, 180 yards to 50 grams. So it's like that line between fingering and sport weight. So I think that is going to be lovely for this. So I did read a little bit. Some people are like, you have to be careful that it doesn't unravel. So like the yarn itself, because of the structure of the ply and the slipperiness of the yarn. So it's definitely something I'm going to keep an eye on. But I think this is going to be a good choice for this top. My only concern about this top, and you can see in the photos, is that it is a little see-through. Again, probably because it has that loose gauge and we're working in a plant fiber. I don't know that I necessarily, in the cold weather months, I do generally wear a layer under my knits. That's not something I necessarily want to do in the summer, but we'll just have to see how it turns out. A neutral colored bra goes a long way, so we will just have to wait and see. Even if it just ends up being like a swimsuit cover-up, that's fine too. But it looks like a really nice, light, airy layer for the summer. So that is definite project number 3. Now let's talk about some maybes. I would say the maybe that's highest up on the list is another nice summer layer, and that is the Amadio, I'm not sure, Tea by Johanna Garish or Colibri by Johanna, sorry. And this is designed for the Knitting for Olive pure silk. So as you can see, lots of eyelets, very airy, very summery. Looks like a relatively easy to memorize pattern on the body. And because it's a t-shirt and we're using a plant-based fiber, I don't have anything specific. So the pure silk is a fingering weight. I don't have a specific yarn for this, but it would be probably a relatively inexpensive yarn purchase if I decide to go with this. The neckline looks a little questionable, like it doesn't look super well shaped. I would probably knit this, go up a size. So the recommended positive ease is 15 centimeters. So 10 centimeters is 4 inches. So maybe like 6 inches, but I might go for a little bit more ease because the sleeves do look kind of like they're a cap sleeve, but they still look kind of like they're pretty close to the arm, and the neckline looks a little close. So I might go a little bit more oversized with this than is necessarily recommended. And again, with all the eyelets, probably you need to wear something under this, maybe just a beach cover up. So that's my first maybe. Maybe number 2 is actually a crochet project that I already have yarn for, and that is the Magnolia tote. This is so cute. I love granny squares. The only crochet projects I have managed to finish so far since starting to learn crochet have been granny square projects. There are so many ends to weave in. So many ends. And the weaving in ends in knitting is simple. And weaving them in for crochet, it's not obvious to me where I should weave them in so that they're invisible, and especially with the granny square designs, I'm using cotton or cotton blend yarns that are a little bit more slippery. I don't want the ends to start popping out. I don't, it's not my favorite, but I would like to do another crochet project, and there is never not a time that I need a good tote bag. So the Magnolia tote is constructed of granny squares. Yes, hi. I'm not talking to you. Quite a few of them. And as I said, I already have yarn for it, and I would like to show you, but the cat is on my lap. Is this really necessary right now? All right, well, I'm going to spin. Ooh, here we go. So these are the yarns that I picked for it already. This is Comfy, a worsted weight, I believe just straight Pima cotton from Knit Picks. No, it is a 75% Pima cotton, 25% acrylic, which is fine for crochet projects in general. I'm not a big acrylic person, but perfectly fine for this kind of thing. I love my little color combo. I have the yarn, especially with these granny squares, and they're, you're changing color after every crochet round, and then there's so many ends, and I just haven't talked myself into actually embarking on this project as much as I like the finished project. So I also like crochet for the summer, especially with the granny squares. They're very portable, even with multiple colors, but I don't know, we'll see about that one. And then the last maybe is that I would like to do a reimagining of a pattern that I designed over 10 years ago. So this is my Annapolis pullover. I published this in 2015. And I like this part. I love this stitch pattern. Beautiful, like it's open without being completely transparent. It's easy to memorize from what I remember. However, I don't wear this that often. It is knit in, I want to say Comfy Sport from Knit Picks, which says it's a sport. It's really a little bit closer to a DK, so with the long sleeves, even with the openness, this is a little heavy. So I would like to reimagine it as a short sleeve t-shirt in a lighter yarn and with a different construction, because this was knit bottom up with set in sleeves. And this was before we really got into the seamless set in sleeve kind of deal. So these had to be sewn in. And another thing, I was a relatively new designer at the time, so I wasn't as experienced with working with different kinds of yarn and fibers. So as I said, this is a cotton acrylic. And once you block it, it doesn't want to stay blocked. So it just keeps kind of shrinking back up, and which is fine. It would be the same using a summery fiber if I were to redo it, but I would know that and I would factor that into the gauge and such. So the yarn I would like to use for this possible reimagining is Pearl Soho Santalina. So if you watch Knit Cheeks podcast, which you should, she has used this yarn quite a bit and is a big fan of it. And I have developed an interest in using it as well. So I have reached out to Pearl Soho about perhaps offering some yarn support for this idea. And again, it's at this point just an idea. I would like to recreate this as a top down with a contiguous saddle shoulder. So you would have just a little bit of saddle here, then it would open up into like a cap sleeve that would just be stockinette, and then the body would still have this main stitch pattern. So we'll see what comes of that. And that is maybe number 3. All right, and then I've got 3 long shot projects for spring and summer, mostly because I don't have yarn for these, and I don't see an opening in the budget anytime soon to get yarn for these, or at least the yarn that I would really like to use for them. So we'll see. Number 1 is the Seagrass Tank. This is a pattern by Samantha Guerin. Love this for transitional weather. So the recommended yarn is the Flax Fingering from Camellia Fiber Company, which I have used before in my own Amankai tea. This is an alpaca silk linen blend. So alpaca, not really a summer fiber. This is definitely either late spring or early fall, really. Not that I have to use that particular fiber, but again, if a pattern is designed with an animal fiber, it's not that you can't knit it in a plant-based fiber, but it will look and feel quite different. And I love the look of this and the drape and the feel. So I don't know that I would want to vary from that too much. I also just like that yarn. So as you can see, this is a sleeveless top, some really nice finishing around the armholes, little eyelet details, folded armhole and collar. Really cute for, again, as I said, transitional weather. And yeah, I'd really like to use that yarn. Again, I would like to have a chance. And it is, for a project, of this size, let's see, the Flax Finger is 435 yards. I'd probably just need 2 of them, but they are like 30 bucks a pop or 35 bucks a pop. So, yeah, so for the first 3 sizes, you only need 2 skeins. I would probably knit either the 2 or the 3, depending. So again, not sure that's going to be in my budget, but I would like to do that particular project with that particular yarn. So we'll see. That's long shot number 1. For long shot number 2, we have the twist loop top by Other Loops. I haven't knit any Other Loops patterns. I know they've been very popular recently. Again, this is a one, like, this is designed for cashmere. Like, what is the situation in which I'm going to want to wear a cashmere sleeveless top? Maybe underneath a cardigan on its own, But a number of people have used the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which is a yarn I really like, for this top, and it has turned out lovely. So there are 60 of these on here using the cotton merino, and they all look great. They still have like the drape of the original, but they also have, but they also have structure. Like they look very similar to the original that is designed for 100% cashmere. Now, the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, again, is reasonably priced, and it is a lovely yarn to work with. I just don't have any right now in my stash. Not sure if I'm going to be able to make that purchase, but that is another one. Definitely is going to be for transitional weather with a cotton merino. But I also find this baffling because the recommended yarns for this pattern are Cashmere Premium from Lang Yarns, which is a DK weight. Classic from Carter's Cashmere, which is a DK weight. Cotton Wool 3 from Gepard Garn, which is a sport. And Cashmere Classic from Gepard Garn, which is a worsted. Like they're all over the place. We got a worsted, we got a sport, and a DK weight. And the yarn I'm talking about using is a fingering weight, but 60 other people have used it successfully. So I don't know about that. But that is definitely on my list. I just found this, I think, when I was doing a spring pattern roundup last month. I hadn't seen it before, and I really like it. I would probably shorten the armholes. A lot of people said the armholes are a little too deep, and I agree with some of the way it looks on some of these samples. But other than that, just it looks like a nice transitional piece and perhaps a nice layer under a cardigan. So that's long shot number 2. And long shot number 3. This pattern has been on my queue forever, and I just don't have the yarn for it. And again, I want to use the yarn that is called for in the pattern, and that is the Kylie Pullover by Irene Lynn, which calls for Sandusgarn Lina. I have not used that before. I'm interested in using it. It is a worsted weight cotton rayon linen blend. This is something that I would like to knit, in the summer to wear in the late summer, early fall. So a worsted weight, even cotton, I'm not going to be wearing in July or August. That's never going to happen. But as we get into September, October, it might be an option for then. And again, this is designed for the plant fibers. It's not designed for a wool, but I really like it as a summer-ish kind of piece. So I do want to use a plant-based fiber, and I could try to substitute, but I really would like to use this, the yarn that's actually called for in the pattern. Just love this. The combination of cables and eyelets I'm always a big fan of. I like the version with the long sleeves that are sort of, I don't know if they're straight or they're actually are more bell sleeves, but they just look great. It looks great in this yarn, has great drape. Just have been a huge fan of this one forever, and haven't had the yarn for it, but you never know. Maybe we'll get that. And that is our long shot number 3 for my spring/summer knitting plans. All right, friends, there you have it. My spring moving into summer knitting plans for 2026. I would love to hear what your plans are, especially if you happen to be planning to knit any of the same things, and we can offer each other, some moral support during our projects. That is always fun as well. I will leave a link to my Ravelry queue in the description box, so you can find all of these patterns linked there. I will also drop some links to the yarns. A couple of them will be affiliate links, which means if you shop through them, I get a little kickback, and that is always helpful. Maybe it'll enable me to get some of these yarns that I am pending for some of these projects. So thank you in advance. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If you liked it or found it entertaining, I hope you will give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. New knitting videos here every Saturday, and next week we will have a traditional podcast episode. Thanks so much again for joining me, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye.